But Shabbat Shalom. We're going to begin with just a reading on page 184. Inspiration for prayer. Each of us enters this sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune, and we rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow, disappointments weigh heavily on them. Families have been broken, loved ones lie on a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered, ideals are betrayed and mocked, answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we too are searching restore our hope and renew our faith. We continue now with Ma Tovu on page 192. And let us turn now to page 203, and let us join together in the prayer, I am a Jew, in affirmation of all that we hold dear. Page 203, excuse me. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of my mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps. I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, the Jew hopes. I am a Jew because the word of Israel is the oldest and the newest. I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the universal promise. I am a Jew because for Israel the world is not completed, we are completing it. I am a Jew because for Israel the humanity is not created, we are creating it. I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations and above Israel itself. I am a Jew because above humanity, image of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine. Our service continues now on page 222 with the Shochein Ad, followed by the Chatzi Kaddish and the Baruch Hu. The middle of the page. Shochein Ad Maharom v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv v'rananu tzadikim baronai la'yesharim nava tehila b'fi yesharim tithalal uv'divrei tzadikim titbarach Uvilshon Hasidim Titramam Uvakarev Kedoshim Titkadash Uvamakalot Udevivot Amcha Beit Yisrael. And we continue now on page 224 with the Chatzi Kaddish, followed by the Baruch Hu on page 226.
Gadol v'it gadash me'raba. V'yalmad yivrach yirotei v'yamlich malchutei b'chai echon u'v'yom echon u'v'kayid kobet Yisrael V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnase v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei dekodesha b'richu leila min kol b'chata v'shirata tush v'chata v'nechemata dam iran bi'alma v'yimeru. Amen.
Please rise for the Baruch Hu. You may be seated. Let us continue now with a prayer on page 229, middle of the page. You are praised who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe into delicate vessels of light and from nothing at all, we could perceive in a world that has turned old a shimmering new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence? How much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks upon the sea. You are praised who forms from the clay that cloaks our lives, the delicate vessels which contain our light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. We continue now with a prayer on page 231 in the middle of the page, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. And light blinded, we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us. As we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher bi'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. Please rise for the Shema, page 232 and page 233, followed by the V'ahavta.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We continue with the V'ahavta on page 234.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלצך בדרך, ובשוקבך ובקומך, וקשקתם לאות ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם לכל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לרעיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
And let us join in prayer on page 241, prelude to the Mi Chamocha, top of the page. Together, the good in us will win over all the wickedness, over all the wrongs we have done. We will look back at the pages of written history and be amazed, and then we will laugh and sing, and the good that is in us, children in their cradles will have won. Our hearts beat with certainty that there is a day and an hour, a mountain called Zion, and that all of the sufferings will gather there and become song, ringing out into every corner of the earth from end to end. And the nations will hear it, and like the caravans in the desert, will all do that morning throng. Page 240, the Mi Chamocha.
מי חמוך בלילי
Sur Yisrael, kuma bi'ezrat Yisrael, uvteichen umecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, go'alenu Adonai tzvaot shemo, kadosh Yisrael, baruch ata Adonai, go'al Yisrael. Rock of Israel, rise in support of Israel and redeem Judah and Israel as you promised. Our Redeemer Adonai Tzvaot is your name, Lord of hosts. Blessed are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Please rise for the tefillah, beginning on page 242, continuing through to page 248. Please rise. we continue in silent meditation, page 248 to page 260. You may either be seated or stand as is your custom.
Sim shalom, tov v'chalam, chen v'chesed, v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha.
You almost want to just savor that for a moment before continuing. A true prayer for peace. The English to that particular prayer is stunning, actually, in terms of its universality and in terms of what it hopes to express at the very end of our silent meditation. And Chris once told me that the composer actually studied with Leonard Bernstein, so it had his seal of approval, I would imagine. It's very, very beautiful and chanted very, very beautifully. Thank you. Our service continues now with the Seder Kriyat HaTorah Shabbat, the service for the reading of the Torah for Shabbat. We're going to begin with a Ki Mitzion on page 364. And please rise. Does everybody have a chumash, a plowed chumash that's in the back? Everyone take one? Okay. Just give me a moment to roll it to the right place. Thank you. I believe the reading may be found on page 173. It should be the parsha that's called Toldot at the top. I have a newer version of the plout, so I just want to make sure that the pagination is the same. And if not, I'll, is it? Good, okay, very good. Last time we read here, we had Parshat Bereshit, so I have to just do a few windings. Yes, we're almost there. We're almost there. So we can do this one of two ways, whatever. I should have planned this ahead of time. I just wasn't thinking ahead. Who would be comfortable coming up to the Torah to like recite a blessing over the Torah? We've done this in groups. The last time we did it, we just had different sections of people coming up. We're only going to do 3 aliyot, three times, and I'll help those that don't. I'm sure somebody will come up who kind of knows the barachot, but if you're unfamiliar, of course, there's the transliteration. But we would like everybody to come up and to receive an aliyah. So why don't we start with, let's start in the back. Larry, James, Carol, and Priscilla. Would you like to come?
I can help you with it. We'll all do it. Do it together.
But if you're not comfortable, it's certainly okay. We're not trying to.
Yeah, we'll do it together. We'll do it together.
We're going to need different. Yeah, this is stuck here. Can't seem to get it out. Yeah, that is stuck in there. Yeah, does this open? Yeah, there we go. There you go.
Okay, it's here. Who's going to be the main speaker here?
Larry.
Larry, the main speaker?
So hold on a second.
Baruch et Adonai habarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Baruch Rabonu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Have the people in the back come a little bit closer.
Are you reading?
Actually, I don't need to fill it.
Are you doing it from the beginning?
Amen. V'ela toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. Avraham holid et Yitzchak. Vayehi Yitzchak ben 40 shana. Bekachto et Rivka. Bat Betuel ha'arami. Mipadan Aram. Achot Lavan ha'arami lo leisha. Vayetar Yitzchak laronoi. Lenochach ishto. Ki akara hi. Vayeater lo Adonai. Vataharivka ishto. Vayetrotzetsu habanim bikirba. Vatomer imkein lama ze anochi. Vatelech lidrosh et Adonai. Second blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher notan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Good job. Good Shabbos. So maybe Gil, Enid, Paul, and Heidi. Great. Yeah. You can all get close.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'harbanu min kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai la shnei goyim bevitnech ushnei leumim mimeayich yeparedu ul'om il'om ye'emat v'rav ya'avod tza'ir vayimlu yamehalalet v'hinei tomim bevitnaha vayetze harishon admoni kulo ka'aderet sehar vayikre'u shemo Esav v'acharechein yatsa achiv vayado ochezet ba'akev Esav vayikra shemo Yaakov v'Yitzchak ben shishim shana beleret otam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And to conclude our reading, we call Howard and Nate. Right.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayigdalu hane'arim vayehi Esav ish yodea tzayid ish sadeh vayaakov ish tam yoshev ohalim vayehav Yitzchak et Esav ki tzayid befiv v'rivka ohevet et Yitzchak vayazed Yaakov nazid vayavo Esav min hasadeh v'hu ayev vayomer Esav el Yaakov al liteni na min ha'adam hazeh ki ayev anochi al kein kara shemo Edam vayomer Yaakov michrach hayom et bechoratcha li vayomer Esav hine anochi cholech lamud v'lamazeh li bechora vayomer Yaakov hishav ali chayom וישבע לו, וימכור את בכורתו ליעקב, ויעקב נתן לעשיו לחם ונזיד עדשים, ויאכל וישת, ויקום וילך, ויבז עשיו את הבכורה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emes, v'chayei olam natah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Amen.
We continue now with the Hodu and Eitz Chaim on page 374. Please rise. You may be seated. When the ark closes, you can all sit down. You don't. As rabbis, we're supposed to be very careful, according to the Talmud, of not causing the community to have what's called a tircha, a burden, and so you never make the congregation stand longer than what they're supposed to, longer than what is necessary. So you always feel badly. I tell people to rise and be seated, and you just kind of do that on your own. If the ark is open, generally speaking, You rise, and when the ark closes, completely closes, then of course you be seated out of respect for the Torah and out of respect for the ark. The other instance is, you all rise for the Shema, but there's actually a controversy in the Talmud about whether you should stand for the Shema or not. So, I'm not used to in our congregations where I came from, they didn't stand for the Shema, but of course you can. So, but when the Shema is finished, when the actual Shema is finished, you can sit down after the Baruch Shem Kavod. You needn't stand for the first paragraph, the V'ahavta. Okay. Since we have a very nice group, yeah, I prepared a little something to talk, but the title of this of the talk was do the ends justify the means, which is really the underlying theme of this particular parsha. Does Rivka do the right thing here by committing this fraud? I spoke a little bit about that last night, but from a very different perspective. Usually when we think of the story of Esau and Jacob, we cast it in terms of Isaac, and we see Rebecca kind of helping to commit this sort of deception, and she usually takes a kind of background seat to the narrative. But last night I spoke from a sort of different perspective. In other words, seeing the events from her perspective and what she did relative to ensuring that there would be continuity among the Jewish people, even if it meant committing deception, committing fraud, just really destroying what turns out to be the destruction of her family. Because the family, not only does Jacob leave and she never sees him again, and we're told at the outset that she loved Jacob. That was in this morning's reading. But also that Esau can't seem to do anything right by his parents. He goes out and marries different women who are idol worshipers. So, the whole family becomes fragmented as in part. But the question I posed for you, and I'm sure some of you have insights into this, do the ends justify the means in such a circumstance? Are there circumstances today where we may cut corners or not do things that are procedurally correct in order to get to the end result? Your thoughts on the portion. Does Rebecca do the right thing?
Doesn't in the beginning, didn't God tell them that Jacob would be delivered in the nation? So therefore, was it really a deception? Isn't it possible that both Rebecca and Isaac knew what was going on?
There's midrashim that suggest it, and it's very interesting that you bring that up. You're right. At the very beginning, it says "Vatelech lidrosh et Adonai," which means she went lidrosh to. Comes from the word drash. You may recognize it from the word midrash. It's the same. In a midrash, or the word is a deep, penetrating exploration of a biblical verse or term. So lidrosh means, in a deep sense, to inquire, but really to search and to look deeply. So what she's doing is lidrosh. She's really appealing to her sense of what God wants her to do. I'm looking at it from a humanistic point of view. I'm not looking at it literally that God tells her this. And she comes to the conclusion from this voice that she hears, or that God tells her, that the older one will serve the younger one. But there's nothing explicit about the birthright, that she's to go ahead and to do this. There's no instruction from God that she's to do what she is about to do. She takes matters into her own hands. So the question still sort of stands, but you're right, that the end was to be that Jacob was going to be the next patriarch. The question is, for me, and I think for all of us, did she do the right thing by acting as she did? Or we can deal with it in a more general way. Do the ends justify the means? Have there been circumstances in our lives where we have done those kinds of things, but you're absolutely correct. Yes, Larry.
I'll take the opposite side. It's been 5,000 years since this thing happened.
Mhm.
Over the course of 5,000 years, over the course of 5,000 years, the Jews and the Muslims have always had fights with one another over who's supposed to inherit the land. Well, first of all, it's a monarchy thing. It's a men's thing of the rite of passage of who's going to inherit what. Well, sometime later, a couple of weeks ago, in one of the parshas or the end of the Torah, women got their rights given to them. Their only problem is they didn't all get on the bus together. It took another 5,000 years or 3,000 years for somebody to get on a bus up in Alabama and show that women had rights. Today, we approach Judaism with women's rights. We had women coming up reading the Torah and doing the blessing today.
Can you believe it?
Huh? Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
Who would have thought in my lifetime?
It's evolution. And it just takes us a long time to get there. And, so who was supposed to get the birthright? I don't know. And who was supposed to inherit whatever came after? I don't know. But it's created a lot of problems depending on your opinion. And here we are 5,000 years later from today's day, and people are still fighting over the land and who's supposed to be living there and who's not supposed to be living there. It's wherever you live, it's wherever you sleep. That's where your Israel is.
Well said.
Well said.
Well said, Larry. No matter what decision is made, there's going to be conflict. If it had gone the other way, there'd be conflict. And it went this way, and there is conflict. Conflict, from what you're saying, is a natural part. So now I'll heighten the tension a little bit here. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. And there's always the debate about the dropping of the atomic bomb. Was that the right thing to do? It ended the war, to be sure. And I wasn't alive during that time period. I don't know. I do know that from what I've read, and maybe somebody understands that part of history differently, that Einstein was very concerned about what they were trying to do, and particularly regarding the radiation, that was not going, and not only that, of course, the destructive, the massive destruction that would be caused by such a bomb, but was also concerned about radiation. Did we do the right thing under those circumstances? I mean, my father fought in the war and it changed his life, not for the better either. It damaged him. And I know many people who came back from wars and from conflicts, who suffered greatly. What about the dropping of the atomic bomb? Did the end justify the means? It's a loaded question, I know.
Made Japan one of the wealthiest countries in the world. What happened afterwards?
Yeah.
And it turned that
Here, go.
turned into a devastated country into the most wealthy economic small country in the entire world.
Yeah.
And we helped them do that.
Yeah.
Not that it was wrong, just saying we helped them do that.
That's right. That's right.
You go to in Hawaii, and you go to the memorial, and you watch the Orientals come by and throw flowers. And when Patricia and I were there, people came over and said, people were so sorry. So, does it justify how many American lives were saved? Being a military person, you look at that as well.
My father, may he rest in peace, talked about, because he was on a boat, he was in the Navy, and after the dropping of the bomb, there were ships that went next to the coast, and he said the terrain would have been very, very difficult to navigate and to conquer if there was to be an invasion. He said many lives would have been lost.
Did he get to be in country when he was there?
I don't think he got actually on the mainland. I think he did bring home a Japanese flag. That I remember, but that was a while back. Yeah, I think Larry has summed it up very nicely, that no matter what, that even you can follow good process. But here's the thing, if we have a vision of where of what we want to achieve, I was thinking about this, and I'll just share this with you, that if we have a vision of what it is that we're trying to get to, our process, ethical considerations and so forth, should evolve from that vision. And normally, but not always, good process leads to good results. That if you go along a path where you're trying to avoid hurting people, and you're trying to avoid, and you're trying to make sure that people are going to benefit, and that people are not disenfranchised because of your decision to do something, you can generally actualize a portion of that vision, understanding that you're never going to actualize it completely. Whatever the vision is, it's never going to be fully realized because there's going to be changes along the way. But I do believe that if we have a good vision of ourselves as a people, as a temple, if we envision how we want things to be, then our process that we do will take into account where we are and the people who we serve, and to be sensitive about actualizing that vision of ourselves and ensuring that everyone is brought along as best we can. But there's never going to be a perfect process. I'm not saying anything that none of you don't already know. I don't have any great wisdom here on this. But I think that's what we see in good leadership, is a vision, and then attempt to be sensitive to the process by which we actualize that vision, and not just to get there at the expense of people, at the expense of human dignity, or at the expense of disenfranchising people, for what that's worth. Shabbat Shalom. This way, by having a Devar Torah now, when we adjourn for lunch, we can enjoy each other, and I don't have to worry about interrupting, and it's still very early, and we're going to continue now with the Aleinu. Before we do that, we should do the Misha Beirach. Please turn to page 371 for the Misha Beirach prayer. Rhoda Bennett, Paul Bradley, Harold H. Fink, Charmaine Mosier, Bruce Mosier, Bettina Prager, Mark Schoenfeld, Mark Siegel, Gloria Weisberg, Kim Lewis, Valerie Simmerman, and Tanya Palmer. I'll call on the congregation to say the names of those in need of healing.
Pretty nice,
Thank you.
My sister-in-law Carmen,
John Johnson, Dr. Morton.
People, there's one family on Zoom. They could unmute if they have anyone. Please rise for your Alenu on page 586 and then page 591. Once again, we want to extend our condolences to the Fishbein family on the passing of Alan Fishbein, or Alan Fisher. This week, we are observing the yahrzeits of Terry Grodsky, Joseph Mazel, Minnie Fleischer, Sam Goldreich, Nathan Fleischer, Jack Silverman, Philip Layden, and David Silberstein. Is there anyone observing a yahrzeit or saying Kaddish for someone who they wish to remember? The mourner's Kaddish, those observing yahrzeit, those whose tradition it is to join in this recitation, page 598. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Merabah, Yalma divrach irute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechon Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach leolam ulalmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu v'yela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen v'hei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'mbroma hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God, who establisheth peace unto the heavens, grant peace and comfort in the hearts of all who mourn, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, there will be the Veterans Service at the Jewish Cemetery. Following, at the conclusion of that service, we will have a Klei Kodesh burial, a burial of our sacred books that are no longer being used. At 2 o'clock, Ivan Mazel will be speaking on his book concerning the loss of his son. Once again, everyone is invited to attend. There'll be a book signing afterwards. Are there any, on Wednesday, there's a Torah study at 5:30. Yes?
Remind everyone, we changed the clocks to that.
Okay. Yes, the public service announcement. We do fall back, so we change the clocks back 1 hour. I want to once again express my appreciation to Molly and Chris. I think all of us really appreciate the beautiful music and how even familiar tunes sound fresh and sound new and certainly inspirational. We're going to conclude our service with a rousing Yismechu on page 250. Everyone knows the tune, so we want to hear lots of participation.
Lots of singing.
250, yes. I think that's right. Yismechu?
Shabbat,
that was quite inspiring from Brazil, from a South America kind of a feel to that. Beautiful. Shabbat shalom to everyone. We also want to thank Priscilla and thank Carol and thank my wife Maggie and Amy for this wonderful little kiddush brunch that we have that we're waiting us. I'll put a plug in for my wife. The bags, you'll notice, have little trees on there, a little Eitz Chaim, courtesy of Maggie. Shabbat shalom.